Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time zone it is, wherever you're in the world, it is your Lore Saviour. And the latest Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition sourcebook, In Memoriam, has been released, sort of, in that you can pre-order the physical book from Renegade Store and you get the PDF for free. Well, I've talked about this before, a video's going to appear on a card somewhere now, but quite frankly this is not how getting things for free works, but that's a conversation I've had before. Now, I have not purchased this book, but a friend of mine punished me by buying it in my stead just so I could flick through it to see if I was interested in it. And I was mildly curious, like, you're kind of curious how bad a car crash is and you just can't quite look away at the sort of thing. And this isn't a full book review because I have not read through it all yet, but there's a few things that caught my eye and I think it'll be quite funny to talk about. Or at least I find it quite funny anyway. Well, the first thing is that it's a sourcebook on playing ancillary vampires. And I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, it's so cool, we can now play older vampires again. And it's like, you can play ancillary characters in the V5 core book. That's like one of the things that's mentioned. In fact, that actually makes it a little different from the other Vampire the Masquerade games. Whilst they all have like a little bit towards the back, playing an ancillary is like part of the core experience. You can play a thin blood, a neonate, an ancillary, or fledgling, which is the same as the neonate really, but potato sort of thing, I guess. Then it has some expanded rules as well, so you can have like additional disciplines and have some additional merits and a decrease of humanity as well. And you can also be a generation 8 or 9 vampire now. So technically speaking, combine that with the added experience points you can get from getting a war, you can now play elders in Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. Which I find at equal measures frustrating and funny, because do you remember when 5th edition came out there was supposedly this big uproar, that, oh, you can't play elders now, and there was the clapback of, oh, you're not really supposed to play elders, stop power gaming the system. Well, the two most recent source books allow you to do that. Well, I actually say it's a bit more than the most previous two, but I've done reviews on some of those other books as well, and I just think that is just so funny. Because they're going back on their ethos of having things totally grounded in that mechanical sense. Now, there isn't a great deal of powers in this book as well. There's like actually only a couple of merits and some flaws, but really isn't a lot in that. It's more of a role-playing guide, which means not many people are going to be reading it properly. And there's some samples in there, like things that have happened over the last 250 years. You can see the table or tables appear on the screen now. You might have to pause and squint at the screen a little bit. It depends how well I can edit this in. But a casual to a more experienced reader might be able to notice that all the things that are mentioned here are very European and American. There's nothing on Asia, there's nothing of the Africas, which, yeah, I get it. If you want to do those things, you really should be researching anyway and using the internet and books and whatnot to help you study and revise these different ideas, but you're paying 45 smackers for some fucking overview of things. There's even a bit on the Victorian age which is so fucking lackluster. Like, you might as well have just put that in a sidebar and recommend people to read Victorian age Vampire and Victorian age Companion. But of course, Renegade and Paradox are not going to do that because they're going to encourage you to buy the most recent thing, because legacy stuff is poo-poo stinky. It is not good at all. Which is a choice, for sure. Subjective or objective, it's a choice that has been consciously made, because everything you need to know about the Victorian age period is in that book, and it's like only a few fucking paragraphs long, which is just pretty silly to me. And you have some more Kindred specific things in there as well. There's a whole thing surrounding Anne Bowsley, the Queen of London. She uses Queen rather than Prince. And unless I have misremembered something from the older fiction, 5th edition and older, they've made her gay, which I don't inherently have a problem with, you know, being bisexual myself. I'm all more than welcome to include queer diversity in my vampire game. The retconning stuff is Something I'm not a huge fan of, really, because it doesn't really make much sense to her character and the whole ethos of her backstory. There's mentioning of the Anarch Revolt, all three of them. That might confuse some of you. When was the third one? Well, the third one was the whole stuff in Prague. You know, with Theobald blowing up Hardestadt with a shotgun. That was technically the start of the third Anarch Revolt, where the Anarchs probably detached themselves at long fucking last from the Camarilla. And it took me a few moments to realise, yeah, that technically is like the third Anarch Revolt, and I can't believe it took me that long to, like, had that properly click in my brain. But what's provided there is not a lot, actually. You can just read a lot more about it in the fucking core book, which still isn't all that much, because it was just, to my mind's eye, it was sort of created to be expanded upon in the future. And of course they kind of did that with the Anarch sourcebook that came out almost immediately after the core book. But yeah, it's just a bit lackluster overall. All the examples are just sort of like teasing, like little paddling in the kiddie pool sort of thing. There isn't a lot to go with, which, if you're talking about a book where you're playing vampires at over 250 years old, that's basically got to cover quite a bit of histories, basically, where really it sort of puts them the late 1700s to the early 1800s, where, especially from an American perspective, quite a lot of really important shit happened there. And of course across the world as well, but as already mentioned, only covers Europe and America, which is very racist, a paradox indeed, of course, but it's just a very frustrating thing. I just expect more from your lore book. And my little skim read of the storytelling chapter is serviceable. As I said, I haven't really properly read it, so take everything I'm saying with a pinch of salt, of course. I mean, you should be doing that anyway, because I am only one person, and you shouldn't really take someone's opinion as bona fide fact 100% of the time, especially in a situation like this where I'm literally just skim reading a book in and around some geezer, like tearing down the bathroom and putting in a wet room for members of my family, just something to occupy my time with. But I'm sort of digressing a little bit here. The main point I'm wanting to address here is that we've won. And what do I mean by that? Well, if everybody was complaining about the absence of lore in 5th edition and how Renegade are sort of making this decision not to include it, they're putting it back in. It might not be stuff that we've liked, but it turns out you really can't do a lot with your system agnostic vampire game, where a core feature of that game is to play vampires who are potentially hundreds of years old. Who would have thunk that? Well, the fans, really. And I hate to have that mindset of, oh, the fans are right, the fans would fix it sort of thing. But turns out that we were onto something. And all the times the community team clapped back at people for having such horrible thoughts. Granted, some of them were quite shitty about it, and I don't condemn that at all. But it just makes me laugh in a really sad and frustrated way that the lore and the meta plot of Vampire, the Masquerade, and indeed the World of Darkness games is so important to the setting. Like, just to divert a little bit with Werewolf the Apocalypse, Shattered Nations literally brings back all the Sept, Karens and politics stuff that they gutted for 5th edition, because they saw that so many people were homebrewing that shit back in. And yet it was a core theme of that game world where Sept aren't really much of a thing anymore. It's a shattered nation, to pardon the pun. And yet the book Shattered Nations is the complete fucking inverse of all of that. Which, having a Werewolf the Apocalypse game where the set's all fractured and whatnot would have been a really interesting idea if they actually did something with it. But no, they just sort of backpedaled and pretend that was sort of the intention all along. And that's kind of what they're doing with In Memoriam. They shattered the old stuff and bringing back new stuff that's never been talked about before, and some of the new material is just lackluster because there's not enough there. It's more of a kickstart, some example ideas sort of scenario thing, which I find really frustrating. And even the stuff with Van Dowser, it's supposed to connect a bit more with the Ford of London, but really doesn't. At least I don't think it does anyway. So the lore enthusiasts out there, we've won, I guess, in a really unsatisfactory sort of way, I guess. And I know that I personally am not going to get any apologies for all the people that have complained to me about supposedly being a V20 fan as a slur, for who complain too much about the lore and the setting, and the weird group of Redditors who don't like it when I say I don't like something. I decide what is or isn't silly or bad material. Well, tell you what, mate, it's all subjective, it's all my opinion. If you don't like it, you don't have to like it or complain about it, you fucking weirdos. But alas, I will just live humbly with the fact that at the end of the day, your Lore Saviour does know what he's talking about after all. So in short, if you're an old-time Vampire the Masquerade fan who has been playing since the beginning or for a very long time, who has collected this large library of old sources of Vampire the Masquerade books that give you the setting throughout the eons and the ages, if you have Victorian Age Vampire, if you know information about, what was happening across the world from the 1750s, or you just have access to fucking Wikipedia as a kickstarting point, In Memoriam, from my little glance through, presently, it's a waste of fucking money. Although I have to say, the little page that says, here are the proper rules to making properly old vampires and generation 8 or 9 vampires, so you can now play elders in your game, is useful rather than all the attempts that I have seen online to make things truly unbalanced. But of course, doing that is kind of antithesis to the theme of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, where it's all street level and it's all focused around your fucking baby neonates, which is not something I'm complaining about, for sure, because Vampire the Masquerade is at its best, where you're at the bottom and you're struggling for breath. Not just because you're a vampire and you realise you're dead, you get what I mean, like, it's designed, and the whole ethos in its story is the little fledgling neonates at the bottom doing their absolute best to survive, clawing whatever power that they have, and then whenever they are given a little bit, half of it is immediately snatched away. That is what makes Vampire the Masquerade sing so well. But across all the editions, it's always been an option to play these older vampires, and it's just a bit fucking funny that for ages Paradox was so, now you can't play it this way, meh. But now you can. That's the bit I find both funny and a little insulting, actually. The artwork is just really shit and mid at best. And probably the best thing is the front cover, just because of how dramatic. But even then, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I've celebrated Mark Kelly's work in the past because I feel some of his earlier stuff with World of Darkness is really evocative. But in more recent years, it's just been Purcell against bright neon cityscape. And that's just sort of gone completely over the fucking top with this. And whilst I do like the bisexual coloured lighting thing going on, which is again something that I have celebrated, I feel in recent years World of Darkness, Paradox, Renegade, whoever you want to put in charge of that responsibility, has relied too much on that and sort of become a bit of a crutch. I feel like, our fans of the perpetually online Twitter crowd and they love all this queer shit, do something like that for a vampire game, please. Especially for the one that brings in lore and the older stuff that those boomer power gamers love so much. That's me rolling my eyes, but I just realised the shadow underneath. Ow! I just poked myself in the fucking eye. That was a real fucking botched attempt. But it's just sort of super frustrating to me that this is the point where we've come to the artwork in our vampire game is something that I hate the most. It's like, how did we get here? Well, I've waffled about that before, but apparently you lot don't like me doing that, so go and watch those older videos, I guess. And I almost forgot one really important thing of the book that I don't think a lot of people are going to take into consideration. They brought Martin Erickson back, which his stay within the World of Darkness 5th edition setting was something of a controversial thing, I seem to recall. Again, he's best buddies with Kareem, I have heard, so I feel it was only a matter of time until they brought him back into the 5th edition sphere, the World of Darkness sphere. I should be a bit more specific with that, because he was one of the people that worked on Bloodhunt, and we all know how well that did. So yeah, that's a very interesting choice indeed, and I think anybody who remembers anything that happened prior to that, his departure I should say, in the more recent years and months running up to that, should keep their eyes peeled on this one. And if you've got no idea what I'm talking about, you can just go and search about it online. My time is rather limited and I don't want to dump you with more subjective opinions and takes than I have done already. To that end, tell me about your subjective opinions and factoids in the comments below about In Memoriam. Have you read it? Have you used it? Do you like it? Don't you like it? Will you be getting it? Just tell me how excited you are or are not about this book. Now, if you want other World of Darkness books, you can go and purchase those via the links in the description below. If you purchase them with those links, I get some of the money back because I'm an affiliate on Drive4RPG, and that bit of coinage allows me to do really cool shit like this and more, which is a really cool relationship, really. There's that You get shit, I get shit, and you get content for free. So really, it's a win-win chicken dinner for you sort of situation, which is absolutely amazing. Now, if you can't do any of that, it's absolutely fine. I know times are hard on all of us, but you know, if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. That's absolutely fine either way. But what you should definitely do regardless is give the videos a thumbs up by liking this video, subscribe to the Lore by Night channel, and share this video with any and everyone who loves what I do. And I'll see you on the next upload, whatever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.